Bringing a truly brilliant idea to life, watching it take shape, well, that's exhilarating, isn't it? But then the real test begins, making sure that idea, that innovation, can actually stand on its own 2 feet.
Yeah, generating its own momentum and impact long after, the initial buzz fades.
Exactly. That, my friend, is the universal challenge of innovation. And today, we're taking a deep dive into precisely that dilemma.
And this isn't just any project we're talking about. We're looking at a really cutting-edge neurosurgical anatomy initiative, one that aims to develop a sophisticated preoperative planning platform.
Okay.
And it leverages the power of machine learning for surgical training. It's a vision with immense potential to redefine how surgeons prepare and train.
Our mission today, then, is directly inspired by a question from Dr. Hadar. He's the brilliant mind behind this project, and his core challenge, the one we're unpacking today, is basically this. How does a project like this one, once it's off the ground with its initial funding, actually move beyond that point and truly sustain itself? It's all about long-term viability, practical steps, and lasting impact.
Right. And to help us answer that, we've been given access to a highly detailed funding roadmap document. You can think of it as a step-by-step guide, really.
Yeah.
Moving from a tiny pilot
Okay.
all the way to a fully funded, sustainable initiative. It's essentially a blueprint for how to build not just a project, but its own economic engine. And crucially for Dr. Hadar, we're going to distill that into actionable, practical advice.
Focus specifically on how this project can fund itself after that initial rollout.
Exactly. That self-funding piece is key.
So let's unpack this roadmap right from the beginning. It heavily emphasizes starting small. Now, for something as intricate and frankly high stakes as a neurosurgical anatomy project, what does a small, manageable pilot actually look like? It sounds almost counterintuitive for such a grand vision.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? But what's truly fascinating here, and I think this is where the practical advice for Dr. Hadar really begins, is the absolute specificity. It's not about trying to solve every single problem at once.
Right.
The roadmap suggests processing just a handful of annotated surgical videos, just a handful, to build one basic machine learning model.
One model.
Just one. We're talking about something very focused, like maybe a model that assists with identifying specific anatomical landmarks during a procedure, or even just a basic predictive output for surgeon training scenarios.
Yeah.
The key is demonstrating a clear end-to-end functionality,
Okay.
even if it's on a microscale. This narrow scope is absolutely critical. It demonstrates feasibility without getting bogged down in complexity or immense upfront costs. It proves the core concept in a tangible way.
Just one model from a handful of videos. That's far more focused than I would have imagined for a project with this kind of ambition. Why is that specific constraint so powerful? Isn't there a risk of being too basic, maybe? Like missing something crucial a larger funder might expect later?
That's a great question, and it speaks to a common pitfall. The simplicity itself is the strategic advantage here. See, funders and collaborators, they aren't looking for a fully fledged product right at the start.
Ah, okay.
They're looking for proof of concept and de-risking. If you can show a clear, measurable outcome from a small, controlled experiment, well, that builds immense confidence. Being too ambitious with a pilot often leads to delays, cost overruns, and frankly, a lack of clear results.
Which can kill future funding.
Exactly. That can actually hinder future funding. So the advice here is really clear. Prove it works, even if it's just a small slice of the big vision. Prove that slice first.
And who's on this lean dream team for the pilot? Is it a whole new department? A massive hiring spree?
No, not at all. The roadmap advises assembling a core group: surgeons, residents, nurses, data specialists. But the crucial part, and this is vital for managing early costs for Dr. Hadar, is leveraging existing hospital staff wherever possible. And this isn't just about saving money. It's about building organic buy-in.
Right.
When existing staff invest their time, the project becomes theirs, not just some external initiative dropped on them. That intrinsic motivation, that shared ownership, can be far more powerful than just paid full-time equivalents in the long run.
So the goal for this initial phase is just a basic demo, like a really bare bones proof of concept?
Precisely. The deliverable needs to be a crystal clear demonstration of end-to-end annotation model training and basic predictive output. You have to show unequivocally that you can take raw surgical video, accurately annotate it, train a machine learning model on that data, and then get a useful, albeit basic, prediction or output. This foundational step is the first critical piece of practical advice for Dr. Hadar. Prove it works, consistently, even on a small scale. That demonstration, that's your golden ticket to the next phase.
Okay. Okay. But before we even think about self-sustainability or even bigger grants, you need that initial seed money, right, to get the pilot off the ground. Where does that initial capital come from for a project like this?
Yeah, good question. The roadmap points directly to internal innovation or pilot grants. These are often available within academic departments or larger hospital institutions.
Ah, inside the hospital itself.
Exactly. They typically range from, say, $5,000 to maybe $20,000. Not huge sums, but enough for the essentials. These funds are specifically designed to cover things like software licenses.
Like Horos or 3D Slicer.
Precisely. Those are common ones, often open source or affordable platforms for medical image viewing and 3D reconstruction. You'll also need some cloud compute resources for the data processing and perhaps support for a part-time data specialist.
Got it.
These are the immediate practical expenses Dr. Haydar will face first, and these small internal grants are often the lowest hanging fruit.
And what about beyond direct funds? Are there other resources you can tap into early on that don't come with a direct dollar sign attached?
Absolutely crucial. The roadmap advises negotiating with hospital administration for in-kind resources.
In kind, like what?
Things like workstation time on hospital computers, IT support for setting up your initial infrastructure, and perhaps most valuable, access to existing video archives.
Oh, wow, yeah. That data access is huge.
It's massive. Accessing these real-world surgical data sets without having to collect them all from scratch is a huge advantage. This early institutional buy-in, where the hospital invests its own non-monetary resources, is absolutely vital. It shows the project has internal support, which is a strong signal to external funders later on, and it significantly reduces your initial cash burn. It's really a testament to the project's perceived value within the organization.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting for Dr. Haydar, I think. Once that pilot data is in hand, you've got your proof of concept. How do you leverage that for the bigger, more competitive grants? Because that small pilot money, well, it won't last forever.
No, it won't.
Yep.
And this is precisely where the preliminary data from your pilot becomes your superpower.
Superpower, I like that.
It really is.
Yep.
You've now shown tangible results, annotation accuracy, initial model performance, maybe even a preliminary clinical utility on a small scale. That concrete evidence transforms your proposal from just an abstract idea into a proven concept with data to back it up. You're no longer asking for money to see if something works. You're asking for money to scale something that you've already shown works.
That completely shifts the conversation.
It shifts the entire dynamic of the grant application, yeah.
So which organizations should Dr. Haydar be looking at for these bigger grants? It feels like there must be so many options out there.
There are quite a few, but the document lists some key players highly relevant to this kind of project. For U.S. government agencies, you definitely target the NIH R21 grants.
R21? Those are the exploratory ones.
Exactly. Exploratory developmental grants. Perfect for proving novel concepts like this. Or, if the project has a strong translational commercialization angle, then SBIR grants are a good fit.
Okay. What about outside the U.S.?
In Europe, Horizon Europe calls are highly relevant, especially for digital health and AI in surgery. They often involve larger consortiums, mind you. And beyond government funding, don't forget foundations and professional societies.
Like AAM.
Like the American Association of Neurological Surgeons, ANS research grants, or the European Association of Neurosurgical Societies, EANS fellowships. Even disease-specific charities, like brain tumor research charities, can be excellent sources. The key is aligning your project's specific impact with their specific funding priorities.
So it's not just about the pure science in these grant proposals, is it? It sounds like you really need to sell the real-world impact. Is there a common mistake people make in articulating that part?
Oh, absolutely. It's a huge mistake to focus only on the tech. The grant proposals must clearly articulate the clinical impact of your work.
Meaning?
Meaning highlighting specific, measurable benefits. Don't just say it improves things. Quantify it if you can.
Yeah.
For example, specify potential time savings in preoperative planning or a measurable reduction in the effort required for annotation, and ultimately the potential for improved surgical outcomes or reduced complications.
Right, the so what's factor.
Yes, exactly. A common mistake is getting too wrapped up in the technical brilliance of the AI and forgetting to explain the problem it solves for clinicians and patients. Funders want to see that your innovation will make a tangible, positive difference in patient care or surgical practice.
And beyond just writing grants, you need to get the word out right. Build some buzz and, maybe more importantly, trust in the scientific and medical community.
Publishing and presenting early findings is non-negotiable.
Mhm.
Absolutely critical for visibility and credibility.
So conferences.
Definitely. You should be aggressively submitting abstracts to major conferences like the ANS Annual Scientific Meeting or MEC AI, that's the Medical Image Computing and Computer-Assisted Intervention Conference. These platforms not only raise your visibility, but can also attract potential collaborators, maybe even future industry partners.
Makes sense.
Furthermore, publishing a peer-reviewed methods paper on your annotation-to-model pipeline is critical. It establishes robust scientific credibility. And that foundational paper, the one proving your methodology, it significantly strengthens all your future grant proposals.
It's like building blocks.
It's a continuous cycle. You prove it, you share it, you build on it.
Okay, so let's say you've proven the concept, you've secured some initial grant funding, you've published your findings. What's the next logical step for Dr. Hatter to really expand the reach and the resources available?
Right. This is where the roadmap suggests identifying strategic industry partners.
Industry partners.
Yeah.
Like,
Typically, you're looking at medical device and simulation companies. Think Upsurgeon, BrainLab, Philips Healthcare, or even surgical robotic startups. The idea isn't just to get funding from them, though.
yeah.
No, it's more about co-development. Perhaps creating specialized modules together, maybe something like 3D-printed craniotomy simulators informed by your unique data, or integrating your AI into their existing training platforms. You're moving beyond just asking for money to actually building tangible products that have market potential.
Okay, but what's in it for these big companies? Why would they partner with an academic project like Dr. Hadar's rather than just trying to develop it all themselves?
It's a classic win-win situation, really. They gain access to invaluable resources that are often very difficult or expensive to replicate in-house.
Like the data.
Exactly. We're talking real-world surgical video data sets. Those are absolute gold mines for AI development. Plus, expert annotations from experienced surgeons that they might not have readily available on their own staff. And of course, co-branding opportunities for innovative solutions.
So it helps them innovate faster.
For them, it's a way to de-risk their R&D, gain a competitive edge, and bring cutting-edge academic innovation into their product lines much faster. Your specialized expertise and unique data become their competitive advantage.
So how do these partnerships typically work financially? Is it just a handshake deal or is it more formal?
Oh, far from a handshake. These are highly structured agreements, usually through what are called sponsored research agreements, or SRAs.
SRAs?
They often involve significant in-kind contributions from the industry partner. Like, they might provide access to their proprietary software licenses or specialized hardware, maybe even engineering support.
And cash.
Yes, usually coupled with modest cash support, typically in the range of, say, $25,000 to $100,000. In exchange, the partner usually receives non-exclusive rights to any improvements or intellectual property developed during the collaboration.
Non-exclusive. That's important.
Very. It's a careful balance between leveraging industry resources and retaining academic freedom and control over your core IP. Dr. Hadar should definitely involve their institution's technology transfer office very early in these discussions. They're crucial for navigating SRAs.
Good tip. So what's expected as a return for that investment and collaboration? What are the key deliverables they'd be looking for?
There are always clear, jointly defined milestones. These have to be concrete. It might be the release of a specific annotated data set tailored to their needs, or the development of specific model prototypes that integrate with their systems.
Or using it in their product.
Yeah, or the successful integration of your technology into the partner's existing workflow or product. This is really about building tangible products and solutions together, moving the project from a research concept towards real-world application, often with a clear path to commercialization for the partner company.
Okay, this feels like the moment. We're getting to the absolute heart of Dr. Hadar's original question, the whole point of this deep dive. How does this project actually fund itself after the initial rollout, after the external grants, and maybe those early partnerships? This is the crucial, practical advice on long-term sustainability we really need to nail down.
Yes, absolutely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture for Dr. Hadar, this is the pivotal moment. This is the transition point. You move from relying solely on external funding, grants, maybe some SRA cash, to creating robust internal revenue streams.
So making money from the project itself.
Exactly. It's about building a sustainable business model within the project itself, ensuring its longevity and its independence. So many projects get stuck here, right? Endlessly chasing the next grant.
Grant treadmill.
Precisely.
Yeah.
But the roadmap offers a really profound shift here from always asking for money to actually generating it. This is where the magic, the sustainability happens.
Okay, so lay it out for us. What are the direct revenue generating services? This sounds like the specific, actionable, simple advice Dr. Haidar needs to make this work long term.
Right. The roadmap highlights three key areas, three direct pathways to self-sustainability for a project like this. First up, a clinical service offering.
Clinical service. What does that mean in practice?
It means providing custom 3D modeling and surgical plan support directly to neurosurgeons or hospitals, and crucially, doing so for a fee. Think of it as a specialized high-value consultancy service built around your platform.
So a surgeon could pay to use the tool for a complex case.
Exactly. A neurosurgeon preparing for a complex tumor resection, say, could pay your center to utilize your platform for advanced anatomical reconstruction, virtual dissection, maybe personalized surgical pathway simulation. Hospitals or individual surgeons would pay for access to your advanced tools and the expert insights they provide, all aimed at improving patient outcomes and reducing surgical risks. It's a direct fee-for-service model.
Okay, that makes sense. What's the second stream?
Second, educational courses. You can develop paid online workshops or even physical lab-in-a-box training packages.
Lab in a box. I like that.
Yeah. The document even references Upsurgeon's brochure as an example, suggesting maybe combinations of virtual reality and physical simulation components. This taps into the really significant and frankly lucrative market for professional development and continuing medical education.
Surgeons always need training.
Constantly. Surgeons and trainees are always seeking ways to enhance their skills, especially with new technologies emerging. Your platform offers unique, hands-on, highly realistic training capabilities. Imagine offering a paid Mastering Complex Craniotomy Approaches workshop where participants use your precise 3D models and simulated environments. That's a direct revenue stream right there.
Okay, clinical service, educational courses. What's the third one?
And third, this is potentially a really powerful one, licensing AI models.
Licensing the AI itself.
Yes. This involves licensing your trained annotation and prediction models directly to medtech companies. This could be structured under, say, a subscription model or perhaps a royalty model based on their sales.
So your IP becomes a product.
Your intellectual property, the sophisticated AI you've developed for tasks like anatomical segmentation or maybe risk prediction based on imaging, it becomes a product in itself. Other companies can then integrate these models into their existing offerings, generating recurring revenue for your project.
Can you give an example?
Sure. A larger medical imaging company might license your segmentation model to enhance their own diagnostic software suite. Or a surgical robotics company might integrate your predictive algorithms into their navigation systems to provide surgeons with more intraoperative guidance. This leverages your deep expertise and technical assets for ongoing income, potentially scaling much faster than direct services.
Clinical services, education, licensing. That's a solid foundation. So what does this all mean for the ultimate long-term goal of the project? It feels like it's not just about selling services piecemeal, but building something bigger, right?
Exactly. That's the key insight. The long-term vision, the grand culmination for Dr. Haidar's project, according to this roadmap, is to establish a dedicated neurosurgical data analytics and simulation center within the institution.
A formal center.
A formal institutionalized entity. This creates a structure that secures core funding through a robust combination of that clinical revenue we just discussed, ongoing competitive grants, because you'll still pursue those, and sustained industry partnerships. It's about making the innovation a permanent, self-sufficient, and indispensable part of the hospital's research and clinical infrastructure.
So it's not just a temporary project.
Exactly. Not just a temporary project living grant to grant. It becomes a recognized hub of excellence, a sustainable asset for the institution.
And how do you measure success for something as comprehensive and potentially impactful as that? What defines true viability beyond just the money?
Yeah, key metrics are crucial here, and they definitely go beyond just the financial bottom line. You'd look at things like the number of surgeries planned using your tools each year. You'd measure the quantifiable reduction in preoperative planning time that surgeons experience.
Okay.
And, critically, you need demonstrable improvements in trainee proficiency using objective metrics from your training modules. For instance, do trainees using your system consistently achieve higher scores on standardized simulation tests compared to traditional methods? Are surgeons reporting fewer unexpected complications in cases planned with your system?
So proving real value.
This continuous measurement proves ongoing value and tangible clinical impact. That's absolutely essential for continued institutional support and for long-term market viability. It's about proving real-world benefit, not just, technical prowess on paper.
Okay, so Beyond the specific funding phases and revenue streams, what are the overarching practical tips for Dr. Haydar to ensure this whole thing works and truly sustains itself? What are the absolute non-negotiables?
Well, the roadmap really emphasizes iterative milestones. That comes up again and again.
Iterative milestones, meaning?
Tying every funding ask, whether it's for that initial pilot or a larger grant later on, to a concrete, achievable deliverable. Show them what they get for their money, step by step. This builds immense trust with funders and stakeholders, and it systematically de-risks the project in their eyes.
Makes sense. What else?
Multidisciplinary collaboration is also flagged as non-negotiable. Keeping the surgeons, the data scientists, the educational experts, maybe even hospital administrators, all aligned on the goals and progress is paramount to success. You absolutely cannot let your technical team work in a vacuum. They need constant clinical input and feedback.
What about the less obvious stuff, the things that innovators sometimes overlook until it's maybe too late?
Good point. Regulatory awareness from day one is absolutely vital. Cannot stress that enough.
Regulatory, like FDA.
Both, potentially, but starting internally. You must consult your institution's IRB, the Institutional Review Board, and the Technology Transfer Office, TTO, very early on. This is to ensure compliance with intellectual property guidelines, but also, crucially, with clinical data regulations like IPO in the US or GDPR in Europe.
Data privacy is huge.
It's massive, and navigating data privacy and security, especially with sensitive patient data, is incredibly complex. Ignoring it or getting it wrong can completely derail a promising project. And finally, something often underestimated: constant visibility and advocacy, meaning providing regular, concise updates to hospital leadership, to grant panels, to your industry partners, always armed with clear metrics and compelling clinical narratives. You have to keep telling your story. This raises an important question, I think, for all innovators listening. How often do we get so focused on the development that we forget to effectively tell our story and clearly demonstrate our value beyond just the technical details?
That's a great point. Persistence in communication is as important as persistence in development.
Absolutely. You have to keep advocating for the project's value.
So, to recap this fascinating deep dive, really focused on Dr. Haydar's project and that core question of sustainability. The journey starts small, a focused pilot, proving the core concept.
Right. Then you secure that essential seed funding, often internally.
Then leverage competitive grants based on your initial data, building credibility, and then strategically form those industry partnerships, not just for cash, but for co-development.
And ultimately, the crucial pivot, the answer to Dr. Haydar's question, comes with building those internal revenue streams, specialized clinical services, high-value educational courses, and smartly licensing your advanced AI models.
That's right. The big picture here seems to be that the path to true sustainability isn't, accidental. It involves a strategic, phased approach.
It's a deliberate progression, moving from an initial reliance on external funding to a really robust model of internal revenue generation, and eventually institutionalizing your innovation for the long term. It's about building a self-perpetuating cycle of value creation and delivery.
So what does this deep dive really reveal about true innovation? Perhaps it's not just about having that brilliant light bulb moment or even getting that first round of funding. Maybe true innovation, lasting innovation, means designing its own economic engine right from the very start, weaving sustainability into its DNA. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What kind of self-sustaining future could your project create?